night was colder than usual, and the empty highway stretched endlessly ahead, swallowed by the darkness. Daniel Carter gripped the steering wheel tighter, his fingers stiff from the chill creeping through the gaps in his car's windows. The clock on his dashboard read 2:47 a.m. His eyelids were heavy, but the eerie silence of the road kept his nerves on edge. It had been almost 3 hours since he'd passed another car. Just him, his headlights, and the lonely road ahead. And then, he saw it. A lone figure, standing on the side of the highway. Daniel's heart gave a small, startled jump. A hitchhiker. The man stood motionless, thumb out waiting. His clothes were strangely old-fashioned. A faded denim jacket, dark jeans, and a backpack slung over one shoulder. The glow of the headlights caught his face, and for a brief second, Daniel thought he saw something off. Something unnatural about his expression. But exhaustion made the mind play tricks. Daniel slowed down. A part of him hesitated. Who the hell hitchhikes this late at night? But another part of him, perhaps guilt or sheer curiosity, compelled him to stop. The man stepped forward as Daniel rolled down the passenger side window. "Where you headed?" Daniel asked, his voice hoarse from hours of silence. The hitchhiker tilted his head slightly. His eyes looked dull, lifeless almost, as if they had seen too much, or nothing at all. "Just a little further down this road," he said softly. Something about the way he spoke sent a chill through Daniel's spine, but he forced a smile and nodded. "All right, hop in." The man slid into the passenger seat, the car filled with the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic, like old rusted iron. Daniel eased back onto the highway, the car's tires humming against the asphalt. For the first few miles, neither of them spoke. Daniel glanced sideways at his new passenger. The hitchhiker sat eerily still, his hands resting lightly on his lap. His backpack was tucked between his feet, untouched. "Been on the road long?" Daniel asked, trying to shake the discomfort crawling up his spine. The hitchhiker didn't immediately respond. A long pause stretched between them before he finally said, "A while." His voice was hollow, almost rehearsed. Daniel forced a chuckle. "Yeah, I get that. Been driving all night myself. Trying to stay awake, you know?" The hitchhiker turned his head slowly, eyes locking onto Daniel. "You should never drive when you're tired," he murmured. Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened. Yeah, I know," he muttered, glancing at the rearview mirror. For a split second, he swore he saw someone else in the back seat. His breath caught. His fingers went ice cold. But when he flicked his gaze back, the back seat was empty. His heart pounded in his ears. Just exhaustion, just his tired mind playing tricks. He swallowed hard, trying to focus on the road. "Do you live nearby?" Daniel asked, desperate to keep the conversation going. The hitchhiker tilted his head again as if considering the question. "I used to," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Daniel frowned. "Used to? Moved away?" A long pause. The hitchhiker turned to him again, his eyes unreadable. "I never left." The road stretched endlessly ahead. The headlights illuminated the pavement, but beyond that, the darkness seemed thicker, heavier somehow. Daniel exhaled sharply. "Well, I can drop you wherever you need," he said, shifting in his seat. "Ain't safe to be out this late, man. A lot of weird stuff happens on roads like these." The hitchhiker's lips curled into a small smile. "I know." Daniel forced out another laugh, though it felt forced now. There was something deeply unsettling about this guy. He glanced away for a second, checking his fuel gauge. Half a tank left. Good. And then he looked back at the passenger seat. It was empty. His stomach flipped. His throat closed up. He slammed the brakes. The tires screeched against the pavement as the car skidded to a stop in the middle of the empty road. Heart hammering against his ribs, Daniel turned, eyes wide with disbelief. The seat was still buckled in, untouched. The door hadn't opened. The hitchhiker was gone. Vanished. Daniel's breath came in short, panicked bursts. Where the hell did he go? He scrambled to check the back seat. Nothing. He peered out the window. The road was empty, just silence, just darkness. He sat there, frozen, the sound of his own breathing loud in his ears. Then his phone buzzed on the dashboard. A notification, unknown number. With shaking hands, he picked it up and read the message. You shouldn't have stopped. Was my gas station warning. Daniel didn't remember how long he sat there, his mind racing, his pulse erratic. Finally, he gunned the engine and sped down the road, pushing the car faster than he should have. The eerie silence of the night seemed louder now, like something was watching him from the dark woods that lined the highway. A few miles ahead, the neon glow of a gas station sign appeared. Relief washed over him. He pulled into the lot, tires screeching against the pavement. An old man sat behind the counter inside, staring at an old radio. He barely looked up as Daniel rushed in. You okay, son? The old man asked, raising a grizzled brow. Daniel's hands shook as he placed them on the counter. I just picked up a hitchhiker back there, but he disappeared, right out of my car. The old man's expression immediately darkened. Where'd you pick him up? Daniel swallowed hard. Mile marker 237? The old man exhaled sharply. He knew. You're not the first one, he muttered, rubbing a hand over its face. Daniel felt his stomach drop. What do you mean? The old man sighed. That hitchhiker? He died on that road 30 years ago. Daniel's world tilted. He shook his head. No, that's not possible. I talked to him. He was right there in my car. The old man's gaze was dead serious. They all say that, he murmured. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. Who was he? The old man hesitated. Then, in a low voice, he said, his name was Michael Reeves. He went missing on that highway in 1992. No one ever found his body. Daniel's breath hitched. The old man leaned in, his voice a whisper. And son, if he got in your car, that means he chose you. Daniel's heart stopped. Chose me for what? He whispered. The old man didn't answer. He just looked past Daniel, toward the window. Daniel followed his gaze. Outside, under the flickering gas station lights, the hitchhiker stood right there, staring in, smiling. Daniel Carter stood frozen inside the dimly lit gas station, his breath coming in shallow bursts. His hands trembled as he gripped the counter, his mind struggling to process what the old man had just said. If he got in your car, that means he chose you. The words echoed in Daniel's head, sinking into his bones like ice. And then the old man's face went pale. Daniel followed his gaze toward the window. Outside, beneath the flickering neon lights of the gas station, the hitchhiker stood there, staring in, smiling. A cold, eerie grin stretched across his face, too wide, too unnatural. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. His mouth went dry. He took a step back. The hitchhiker didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, watching, waiting. The old man behind the counter muttered something under his breath. Daniel barely caught it. You need to leave, now. Daniel's body screamed at him to listen, to get in his car and drive. But his legs refused to move. Something about that smile. It held him in place, paralyzed. And then, the gas station lights flickered. The radio behind the counter let out a sharp burst of static, and in that brief moment of darkness, the hitchhiker was suddenly gone. Desperate questions. Daniel staggered backward, his breath ragged. His eyes darted around the empty parking lot. Nothing. No sign of the hitchhiker. But that didn't mean he wasn't still there. The old man let out a slow breath, shaking his head. "You shouldn't have stopped, son." Daniel turned to him, panic rising in his chest. "What the hell is going on? What is he?" The old man didn't answer right away. He reached under the counter, pulled out a half-empty bottle of whiskey, and took a long, slow sip. Then he met Daniel's gaze. "Sit down," he said. Daniel hesitated, but dropped into a worn-out bar stool near the counter. His fingers drummed anxiously against the wood. The old man sighed. "That hitchhiker you picked up?" His name was Michael Reeves. He was just a kid when he went missing, barely 20 years old. One night, back in 1992, he was seen hitchhiking down that very same stretch of road. Daniel swallowed hard. "And then what?" The old man leaned in slightly. "And then he vanished." Daniel's stomach twisted. No body, no witnesses, no answers. The old man continued. "But ever since that night, people still see him, always standing in the same place, always waiting for a ride." Daniel felt ice crawl down his spine. "And what happens when someone picks him up?" he asked. The old man took another sip of whiskey, his eyes darkening. "Some make it out, some don't." Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. "And the ones who don't?" The old man hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "They become the next hitchhiker." Memories that don't belong. Daniel's hands gripped the edge of the counter so tightly his knuckles turned white. This was insane. None of this made sense. And yet, a small, dreadful feeling crept into his mind. Because something had felt off ever since he picked up Michael. Not just the eerie silence, not just the way he spoke, flat, rehearsed, unnatural. It was something deeper, something Daniel couldn't explain. He clenched his jaw, his mind racing, and then like a splinter burrowing into his brain, a memory surfaced. Except it wasn't his memory. It was Michael's. For a split second, Daniel wasn't in the gas station anymore. He was somewhere else. The night was stormy, rain slamming against the asphalt. He stood on the side of the road, backpack slung over his shoulder, soaked to the bone. He was hitchhiking. A car slowed down, its headlights blinding. Someone rolled down the window. A voice, deep, unfamiliar, spoke. "Need a ride?" Michael hesitated. Something felt wrong. And then, Daniel snapped back into reality, gasping for air. His heart pounded. He staggered back, gripping the counter for support. The old man watched him carefully. "You remembered something, didn't you?" he asked. Daniel's breathing was ragged. He wasn't supposed to remember that. He looked up at the old man, his voice barely a whisper. "How do I stop this?" The old man's expression hardened. "You don't." The mark of the hitchhiker. Daniel's hands were ice cold. He felt it now, deep in his gut. Something was wrong with him. He glanced down at his wrist. His skin looked paler than before, faint, almost faded. And then, beneath the dim gas station lights, he saw it. A small, barely visible handprint on his arm. Michael's handprint. As if something had latched onto him. Daniel's stomach flipped. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. The old man's face turned grim. "You've been marked," he said. "That means he's not done with you." Daniel's breath hitched. "What do you mean, not done with me?" The old man's gaze didn't waver. "He picked you for a reason." Daniel's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Then how do I get rid of him? The old man let out a slow breath. There's only one way. Daniel stared at him, waiting. The old man's next word sent a cold shiver through his soul. You have to take someone else for the ride. The final warning. Daniel felt like the room was spinning. His skin crawled with a terrible realization. Michael wasn't just a lost soul, he was a curse, a cycle that never ended. And now Daniel was part of it. He shook his head violently. Number, that's not happening. I won't do that. The old man studied him carefully. You think you have a choice? Daniel's hands curled into fists. There has to be another way. The old man sighed. Maybe there is, but I don't know it. Daniel's mind raced. There had to be a way to break the cycle. There had to be something he could do. But before he could speak, the gas station lights flickered again. The air turned ice cold, and from somewhere just outside the door, a voice whispered, "Need a ride." Daniel's blood ran cold. He turned slowly, and there, standing just inches from the glass, was Michael. That same eerie smile, that same hollow stare, waiting, watching, and this time, he wasn't alone. Because behind him, lining the darkened road, more hitchhikers stood, silent, motionless, waiting for their next ride. Daniel stood frozen inside the gas station, his breath shallow, his body refusing to move. Outside, beneath the flickering neon light, Michael stood at the window, that eerie, stretched-out grin plastered on his face. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, along the darkened highway, more figures stood, silent, motionless, waiting. The old man behind the counter tightened his grip on the whiskey bottle. His voice was grim. You see them now, don't you? Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. His pulse pounded in his ears. What are they? He whispered. The old man didn't take his eyes off the window. They were just like you once, drivers, hitchhikers, people who got caught in the curse. Now they're trapped. Daniel's stomach churned. Outside, Michael tilted his head. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and knocked on the glass. 3 soft taps. Knock, knock, knock. The gas station lights flickered. The radio behind the counter let out a burst of static. And then, the door creaked open. No escape. A blast of cold wind rushed into the gas station. Daniel staggered back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Michael stepped inside. His shoes made no sound against the tiled floor. His clothes were still damp, as if he had just stepped out of a storm that wasn't there. And his eyes, black, hollow, empty. Daniel's breath came in sharp gasps. The old man's voice was a low growl. You shouldn't be here, boy. Michael's head turned toward him. His smile widened. Neither should you. The gas station lights went out. Pitch darkness swallowed the room. Daniel's pulse skyrocketed. He stumbled back, reaching for something, anything, to hold on to. Then the old man's voice, low and urgent, cut through the darkness. Run, son, run while you still can. Daniel's heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to move. But before he could, a hand grabbed his wrist. Ice-cold fingers. Michael's. The ride begins. Daniel let out a choked gasp as Michael's grip tightened. The world lurched. The gas station disappeared. Darkness swallowed everything, and then Daniel was somewhere else. A lonely stretch of road. Rain poured from the sky, soaking his clothes. The air smelled of wet asphalt and something else. Something rotten. And then he saw it. A car slowing down. Headlights cut through the storm. A driver rolled down the window. His face was shadowed. Need a ride? The man asked. Daniel's chest tightened. This wasn't just any road. This was the night Michael disappeared. And somehow, Daniel was inside his memory, watching it happen. A night that never ends. Michael hesitated at the side of the road, his backpack slung over his shoulder. The rain pounded against his skin. His instincts told him not to get in the car. But something pushed him forward. He climbed into the passenger seat. The door slammed shut. The driver's hands tightened on the wheel. The car began to move. Daniel couldn't breathe. He was trapped, forced to relive the past. The driver's face was still hidden in shadow, but something about him felt wrong. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Thanks for stopping," he said. His voice was hesitant. The driver didn't respond. The car sped up. Raindrops hammered against the windshield. And then finally, the driver spoke. "You ever think about how some people just disappear?" Michael stiffened. Daniel's blood ran cold. The driver turned his head slightly, just enough for Daniel to see the corner of his mouth, grinning. "You think people ever know it's their last ride? A killer in the night." Michael's breath hitched. The driver's fingers tightened on the wheel. The car was moving faster. The road seemed endless, stretching into the void. Michael shifted in his seat. "Hey, you can just drop me off here?" The driver didn't slow down. Michael reached for the door handle. It wouldn't budge. Daniel felt a pit form in his stomach. This was it. This was the moment Michael disappeared. The driver's voice was eerily calm. "Ever wonder where the lost ones go?" Then a knife, a flash of silver in the dim light. Michael's eyes widened in horror. Daniel tried to scream, to stop it, but he couldn't move. He could only watch. The blade plunged forward. Blood splattered against the windshield. Michael's body jerked, and then everything went dark. The truth unveiled. Daniel gasped for air. He was back, inside the gas station. His clothes were dry. His hands shook. Michael stood across from him, his empty eyes boring into him. "You saw it, didn't you?" Michael's voice was barely a whisper. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps. You were murdered." Michael didn't blink. "But I never left." Daniel felt sick. The curse. It wasn't just some ghost story. Michael had been trapped in the moment of his death, forever reliving his last ride. And now Daniel had become part of it. He grabbed the old man by the shoulder. "How do I stop this?" The old man's expression was grim. "You know how." Daniel's chest tightened. He shook his head violently. "Number, I'm not taking someone else." The old man sighed. "Then you better start running, boy." Daniel's heart pounded. Outside, the road stretched into the dark, and standing along the highway, the lost hitchhikers watched, waiting. Because if Daniel didn't break the cycle, he would become the next one. Daniel sucked in a sharp breath. His body trembled as he clutched the gas station counter. He had seen it. Michael's final moments. The storm. The lonely stretch of road. The faceless driver. The knife. The way Michael's life had been stolen, only for his soul to become trapped in a loop of endless horror. Now Daniel knew the truth. But knowing was only half the nightmare. Because now, Michael wasn't the only one watching him. The lost ones. Standing along the dark highway, motionless, hollow-eyed, waiting, and if Daniel didn't find a way to escape, he would be next. The old man behind the counter exhaled slowly. His voice was low and firm. "You can't cheat the road, son. Either you feed the curse," his gaze flickered toward the open gas station door, "or it feeds on you." A gust of cold wind rushed in, rattling the shelves, and Daniel knew he was running out of time. The unseen force. The air grew heavy. Daniel could feel it now, the weight of something unseen pressing down on him. The world outside shifted. The road stretched on endlessly. The gas station seemed frozen in time. The lost souls remained motionless. And Michael. Michael was smiling. Daniel's heartbeat hammered. He needed to break the curse. But how? Michael took a slow step forward. His voice was soft, almost kind. You don't have to be afraid, Daniel. Daniel's jaw clenched. His breath was ragged. You were murdered, Michael. Michael's head tilted. Was I? Daniel's stomach twisted. He had seen it. The knife, the blood, the faceless driver. But something wasn't right. The memory had felt real, too real, like he had been inside it, like he was reliving it. And then a realization hit him like a speeding truck. The endless loop. Daniel's voice shook. How many times have you seen it happen? Michael's expression didn't change. Daniel stepped closer. How many times have you watched yourself die? Michael blinked. His smile faltered. Daniel's mind raced. Something was wrong. He had assumed Michael was a ghost, a lost spirit forever haunting the road. But what if Michael wasn't just watching his own death? What if he was reliving it? Over and over and over. The gas station, the highway, the ride, the blade. It wasn't a memory. It was a trap. Daniel swallowed hard. Michael wasn't the only one caught in it. The lost ones weren't just watching. They were waiting for their turn. Because once you saw the truth, the highway never let you leave. The cycle must continue. Daniel spun toward the old man behind the counter. You said I had a choice, he hissed. What did you mean? The old man sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. It's simple, son. His voice was low and cold. You either give the road someone new, his gaze darkened, or you take the next ride yourself. Daniel felt sick. That's the curse, the old man murmured. You see the truth, and you gotta pass it on, or else. His voice trailed off. Outside, the hitchhikers stirred. A whisper moved through the air. A voice, not one, but many. Take the ride. Daniel's hands curled into fists. Michael watched him with hollow eyes. You're running out of time, Daniel. And that's when he heard it. The sound of an approaching car. The driver returns. The headlights cut through the night. A vehicle rolled onto the gas station lot. A sleek black car, the same one from Michael's final ride. Daniel's throat went dry. He knew who was inside. The faceless driver. The one who had started this nightmare. The one who had taken Michael. The car slowed. The window rolled down. Daniel's breath hitched. The driver's face was shrouded in darkness, but his voice was smooth as silk. Need a lift? Michael turned to Daniel. You know what to do. Daniel's pulse pounded. He could take the offer, get inside, end this, or he could do what every cursed soul before him had done. Find someone else to take his place. His stomach twisted. The road was waiting, and he had a choice to make. The terrible decision. Daniel's thoughts raced. He could feel the weight of the lost souls pressing down on him. This was how it worked. Every person who learned the truth had to make a choice, sacrifice someone else, or take the ride themselves. The driver's fingers tapped against the steering wheel. Clock's ticking, kid. Daniel's fists clenched. His mind screamed at him to run, but there was no running from the road. The only way to break free was to trap someone else, a stranger, a drifter, someone who wouldn't be missed. Daniel felt bile rise in his throat. Could he really do it? Could he send someone else to die, just to save himself? Michael's voice was eerily calm. It's not murder, Daniel. Daniel turned, his eyes burning. Then what the hell is it? Michael's gaze didn't waver. It's survival. Daniel's heartbeat thundered, and outside, the driver waited. A deal with the darkness. The wind howled. The gas station lights flickered. Daniel's body was paralyzed. He could take the ride, or he could break the cycle by passing it to someone else. A fresh victim, a new lost soul. His stomach twisted. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. "Choose, Daniel." Daniel's breath hitched. The car door unlocked. A new ride was waiting, and Daniel had only seconds to decide before the highway claimed him forever. Daniel's world had collapsed into a nightmare. The lost souls stood in the darkness, watching, waiting. Michael's empty gaze bore into him. The black car idled outside, its sleek frame gleaming under the gas station lights. And inside, the faceless driver waited. "Clock's ticking, kid," the driver's voice drawled, calm and patient. Daniel's breath hitched. He could feel it now, the weight of the choice crushing him. Either he found someone else to take the ride, or he got in himself. The old man behind the counter sighed, taking a slow sip of whiskey. His voice was grim. "Everybody makes the same choice, son. The only question is..." He locked eyes with Daniel. "How long you gonna fight it?" Daniel's hands shook. He wanted to run, to escape, but there was no escape, because the highway always took what it was owed. And now, it was his turn to pay. The last passenger. Daniel's eyes darted toward the road. The highway stretched into the void, endless and empty. His mind raced. There had to be another way. He turned toward Michael, his voice barely a whisper. "You've been here for years. You know the rules. Is there any way to stop it?" Michael didn't blink. "There's only one rule, Daniel." His lips curled into a slow, almost sad smile. "You don't get off the road unless you put someone else on it." Daniel's stomach churned. Outside, the car door swung open. The driver's voice floated through the cold night air. "Last chance." Daniel's body tensed. And then, a sound. Footsteps. Someone was coming. A stranger appears. A figure emerged from the dark, walking along the edge of the highway. A young man, early 20s, hoodie pulled over his head, a backpack slung over one shoulder. A hitchhiker. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. This was his way out. His stomach twisted. Michael's voice was low and careful. "All you have to do is call out to him." Daniel's hands curled into fists. The hitchhiker stopped at the edge of the gas station lot, shaking from the cold. He looked lost, tired, just like Michael must have looked that night. Daniel felt his heart pounding. Could he do this? Could he send an innocent man to die just to save himself? The old man behind the counter let out a slow exhale. "That's the price, son. Either he takes the ride," his gaze darkened, "or you do. The devil's bargain." Daniel's breath shook. The hitchhiker glanced at him, hopeful. "Hey, man, is there a bus stop around here?" Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His body felt frozen. The driver chuckled from the car. "Go on, kid. Help him out." Daniel's jaw clenched. The hitchhiker shifted uncomfortably. He looked down the road, sighed, and shook his head. "Man, I hate walking this highway. It's like it never ends." Daniel's pulse hammered. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. "It doesn't." The hitchhiker turned to him again. "Any chance you can call me a ride or something?" Daniel swallowed. His throat was dry. A ride. That's all he had to do. All he had to say was, "There's a guy right there. He can give you a ride." 14 words. 14 words, and Daniel would be free. His fingers trembled. The hitchhiker sighed, adjusting his backpack. "Guess I'll just keep walking." And then, before Daniel even realized what he was doing, he spoke. "There's a guy right there. He can give you a ride." A soul for a soul. The words hung in the air. The hitchhiker frowned, glancing toward the car. The driver grinned. "That's right, kid. Hop in." The hitchhiker hesitated. Daniel felt sick. He had done it. The deal was made. Michael's voice was soft. "It's easier than you think, huh?" Daniel's breath hitched. The hitchhiker stared at the car. his instincts screaming at him to refuse. But the cold was biting, the night was endless, and he was so damn tired. "Yeah," the hitchhiker murmured, stepping forward. "All right." He pulled open the passenger door, paused, turned back to Daniel, smiling. "Hey, man, thanks." Daniel's chest tightened. The hitchhiker slid into the seat. The door clicked shut. The driver's grin widened. And then, the car pulled away, into the darkness, swallowed by the endless highway. Gone. The curse lives on. Daniel stood frozen. The weight on his chest crushed him. Michael watched him in silence. "You did what you had to do," he murmured. Daniel's breath came ragged and uneven. "Did I?" he whispered. The old man behind the counter took another slow sip of whiskey. "You did what we all do, son." His voice was hollow. "You survived." Daniel's stomach twisted into knots. Outside, the lost souls watched him, silent, waiting, not angry, not relieved, just waiting. Because now Daniel was part of them. He had made the choice, and someday, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but someday, he'd be back. Because the road never forgets, and the curse never stops. Daniel had made the choice. He had given the road someone else. The hitchhiker had climbed into the car. The door had clicked shut. The driver had grinned. And then, the car was gone, swallowed by the darkness. The highway had taken what it was owed. Daniel was free, or so he thought. Because as he stood there, his hands still shaking, his breath still unsteady, Michael's voice whispered in his ear, "You never really leave, Daniel." A haunting silence. The gas station was quiet, too quiet. The old man behind the counter took another slow sip of whiskey, staring at Daniel with empty eyes. Outside, the lost souls hadn't moved. They were still standing at the edge of the road, watching, waiting. Daniel felt a cold sweat creep down his spine. "I did what you said," he whispered. "I passed it on. So why?" His voice trailed off. "Why did it still feel wrong?" Michael gave him a sad smile. "You think it's over?" Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to believe he had escaped. But something wasn't right. The road's true curse. "You don't get it, do you?" Michael murmured. Daniel's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Michael sighed. "You think giving the road someone else makes you free." His gaze darkened. "But you were already part of it the second you saw the truth." Daniel's heartbeat pounded. "No," he muttered. "I did what I had to do. I'm done." Michael tilted his head. "Then why are you still here?" Daniel froze. The car was gone. The deal was done. So why did the gas station still feel like a cage? Why did the lost souls still stare at him? Why did the highway stretch endlessly before him, waiting? And then it hit him. "No!" His hands shook. The old man let out a long, slow sigh. "You can't cheat the road, son." His gaze was grim. "You're part of it now." The unbreakable cycle. Daniel's pulse thundered. "No," he whispered. "No, I made the choice. I walked away." Michael's expression was almost pitying. "Did you?" Daniel turned toward the road. His breath caught in his throat. The black car was back, sitting at the edge of the gas station lot, waiting. His chest tightened. "That's not possible," he muttered. "It just left." Michael exhaled slowly. "The road never lets go, Daniel. It just waits." The car door swung open. The driver's voice drifted through the cold air. "Need a lift?" Daniel stumbled back. "No," he whispered. "I did what you wanted. I did what everyone else did." The driver's grin was unchanged. "Yeah," he said smoothly. "And so did they." Daniel's breath hitched. Michael gestured to the lost souls. One by one, they began to fade. drifting into the dark, vanishing into the highway. The old man behind the counter set down his glass. "Everyone thinks they're different," he muttered. His voice was heavy. "Thinks they can pass it on and walk away." His tired eyes met Daniel's. "But the road always comes back for you." Daniel's stomach dropped. The old man's fingers tightened around his glass. "You ever wonder how long I've been standing here, son?" Daniel froze. His breath caught. The truth hit him like a punch to the gut. This man, this tired, whiskey-drinking old man, had been standing here for years, watching, waiting. Because once the road claimed you, you were never really free. The road calls again. Daniel turned back to the car. The driver wasn't smiling anymore. He looked patient, like he knew Daniel would break, like he had seen this play out before. Daniel's fingers trembled. "I won't get in," he whispered. Michael sighed. "You will." Daniel shook his head violently. No, I won't." Michael's voice was almost gentle. "You don't have a choice, Daniel." The air felt heavy. The road stretched into the distance, dark, infinite, waiting, and Daniel knew he was never supposed to leave. The final ride. Daniel took a step forward, then another. The night was silent. The gas station lights flickered. The lost souls had vanished. Only Michael remained, watching. Daniel reached the edge of the road. The black car idled softly. The driver leaned over, pushing the passenger door open. "Come on, kid," he said quietly. Daniel's breath shook. He could run. He could fight. But the road would always find him. It always did. So Daniel took a deep breath and stepped into the car. The curse lives on. The door clicked shut. Michael watched as the car pulled away, disappearing down the endless road. The old man behind the counter let out a long sigh. "Shame," he muttered. Thought he'd last longer. Michael didn't answer, because deep down, he had known. Nobody ever really escaped. And now Daniel was part of the highway. Just like Michael, just like the old man, just like the driver. Because the road never forgets. And one day, it will come back for you too. The house that whispered. The house stood silent, too silent. Michael and his family had moved in just a week ago, a fresh start in a peaceful neighborhood. The house was old but charming, Victorian style with creaky wooden floors and stained glass windows. It had character, it had history, but it also had something else. Michael had felt it the first night, a strange sensation, like being watched. The air was always a little too cold, the shadows a little too deep. At first he brushed it off. Houses make noises, wood contracts, pipes rattle, nothing unusual. Until the noises started. Not the usual house creaks. Number, these were different. Soft, scratching sounds coming from above. A slow, deliberate thump, thump, thump in the dead of night. It was subtle at first, maybe a mouse, maybe a bird nesting in the attic. But as the nights passed, the sounds grew louder and closer. The first sign. It was around 2:47 a.m. when Michael first heard it clearly. Of a shuffling sound, like someone moving just above his bedroom ceiling. He sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room was dark except for the dim orange glow of the streetlight outside. His wife, Sarah, slept beside him, undisturbed. He held his breath, listening. Another big thump. Then, silence. Michael exhaled, shaking his head. Just the house settling. That's what he told himself. But deep down, something gnawed at him. A feeling, an instinct. The next morning, over breakfast, he mentioned it to Sarah. "Probably a raccoon," she said, pouring coffee. "I'll call pest control." Michael nodded, but something about the way the sound had moved. So slow, so deliberate, didn't sit right with him. That night, he decided to stay awake. A presence in the dark. At 2 a.m., Michael lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting. Minutes crawled by. The clock on the nightstand blinked. 2:36, 2:45, 2:50. Then, there it was. A faint scratching, like nails against wood. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The sound wasn't just above the ceiling now. It was moving towards the attic entrance. A slow, rhythmic thump, thump, thump followed, like careful footsteps. Michael's skin prickled. He reached for his phone, turned on the flashlight, and crept out of bed. The attic entrance was in the hallway, one of those old pull-down ladders. His pulse pounded in his ears as he approached. The scratching had stopped. He reached up, grabbed the attic cord, and pulled. The ladder creaked as it unfolded. A gust of cold air rushed down, carrying the scent of dust and something else. Something rotten. Michael aimed his flashlight into the attic. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing old boxes, cobwebs, and nothing else. He exhaled in relief. Just my imagination. He was about to close the hatch when he noticed something. A single footprint in the dust. And it wasn't his. Something was up there. Michael didn't sleep that night. He locked the attic, stuffed towels under the door, and lay awake listening. Nothing. By morning, he was convinced he had imagined it. But when Sarah woke up, she frowned. "Why is the fridge open?" she asked. Michael turned. The refrigerator door stood slightly ajar. Inside, several food items were missing. They stared at each other. Sarah's voice dropped. "Michael, did you hear anything last night?" His throat went dry. "Why?" She hesitated. I thought I heard something. Like breathing." A chill ran through him. He hadn't told her about the attic, about the footprint, because deep down, he didn't want to admit it. Someone was in their house, and they weren't alone.
Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The missing food, the footprint in the attic, the strange noises. They weren't just coincidences. Someone had been inside their home. And the worst part? They still might be. That morning, he decided to check the attic again. This time, he wasn't going up there alone. "I'm coming with you," Sarah said firmly. Michael hesitated. "Are you sure?" She nodded, though he could see the fear in her eyes. Armed with a baseball bat and a flashlight, they climbed the pull-down ladder. The air was thick with dust and something else, something foul, a mixture of sweat, rot, and stale breath, the kind of smell that didn't come from an empty attic. Michael aimed the flashlight into the darkness. The beam flickered, and then they saw it. A pile of discarded food wrappers, old blankets, and a half-empty water bottle. Someone had been living up here. Sarah gasped, covering her mouth. Michael's heart pounded. He swept the flashlight across the attic. Then, in the farthest corner, he spotted something that made his stomach twist. A small hole cut into the wooden floor, right above their bedroom. Someone had been watching them. The police investigation. They scrambled down the attic ladder, slamming it shut. Michael grabbed his phone and dialed 911. His hands were shaking. Within minutes, police arrived. Officers searched the attic, but the space was empty. "Whoever was here is gone now," one officer said. But judging by the setup, they'd been here for a while. Michael swallowed hard. "How long do you think?" The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "Weeks, maybe months." Sarah's face went pale. "Oh my God," Michael clenched his fists. "How had they not noticed?" The officer continued. "We found some old clothes, an empty can of soup, and," he hesitated, "a notebook." He handed it to Michael. Michael flipped it open. The pages were filled with strange, erratic handwriting, scribbled phrases, doodles, and then lists of dates, lists of their daily routines. Michael's stomach churned as he read. 2:30 a.m., he gets up to check noises. Sarah sleeps at 11:15 p.m. They leave for work at 8 a.m. Fridge restocked on Tuesdays. Michael's breath caught in his throat. This person had been tracking their every move. "Jesus Christ," Sarah whispered. "They knew everything about us." The officer nodded grimly. "We'll dust for prints and check security footage in the area, but for now, I suggest you stay somewhere else." Michael shook his head. "No, we're not running from this. We're installing cameras, alarms. If they come back, I want to know." Sarah grabbed his hand, her grip tight. "Michael, what if they never left?" The officer sighed. "That's the scary part." Michael stared at the attic door, his blood running cold. What if they were still inside the house? The man in the walls. That night, they locked every door, checked every window, installed security cameras, but even with all that, neither of them could sleep. Michael lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He could still smell that rotting stench from the attic. It felt like it was seeping through the walls. Then he heard it, a faint rustling, not from the attic, from inside the walls. Michael bolted upright. Sarah stirred beside him. "Michael," she murmured. He held up a finger. "Listen." They both went silent. And then, a low, guttural breathing, right behind the wall. Michael's blood turned to ice. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He's still here." Michael reached for his phone with trembling hands, dialing 911 again. Then, suddenly, a loud crash. The sound of wood splitting open and the walls began to move. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The walls were moving. It wasn't an illusion. Something was shifting behind them. Sarah clutched his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Michael, what the hell is happening?" A loud crack echoed through the house. Wood splintered. Plaster crumbled. And then a hand. Pale. Dirty. Crawling through a gap in the drywall. Michael's body went rigid. Sarah screamed. That was enough to send him into motion. He grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward the door. Behind them, something dragged itself through the widening hole in the wall. Something human, but not quite. Michael didn't look back. He couldn't. He grabbed the bedroom door handle and yanked. Locked. No. It wasn't locked before. Then came the sound. A wet, rasping breath. Right behind him, Michael turned his head just for a second, just long enough to see a figure half hidden in shadow, crawling toward them. Stringy black hair, hollow cheeks, sunken, lifeless eyes, and that smell. Rot, sweat, decay. The desperate escape. Adrenaline surged through Michael's veins. He wasn't going to die in this house. He threw his weight against the door, once, twice. On the third hit, it burst open. They stumbled into the hallway. Sarah sobbed. Behind them, the sound of something scraping against the floor followed. Michael grabbed his phone and hit 911. A robotic voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? He didn't even know where to start. There's someone in our house, in the walls. Please, we need help. Sir, can you describe? The call cut off. No signal. Michael stared at his screen in horror. Then, the lights flickered. Sarah grabbed his arm, whispering, "Michael, he's not just in the walls." He followed her gaze. Every vent, every dark corner, every shadow in the house. They all felt like eyes. Watching, waiting. A noise echoed down the hallway, not footsteps. Something else. Something crawling. Sarah whimpered. Michael clenched his fists. "Screw this, we're getting out." They sprinted toward the front door. Slam. They both froze. The door had shut on its own. And then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the living room. A voice followed. Low, raspy, guttural. "You shouldn't have looked." Michael grabbed Sarah's hand. "Run." The man in the shadows. They bolted toward the back door. Michael reached it first, grabbing the handle. Locked. Deadbolted. No. Sarah spun, eyes darting around the room. Windows, the kitchen. They ran. Behind them, something chuckled. Michael grabbed a chair, hurled it at the kitchen window. The glass shattered. Go. Sarah climbed through first. Michael was halfway through when he felt it. Fingers, cold, clawing at his ankle. He kicked, hard. A guttural snarl followed, and the grip loosened. Michael fell through the window, hitting the ground with a painful thud. Sarah helped him up. They didn't stop running. Not until they reached the street. Not until they saw flashing red and blue lights. The police had arrived. What the cameras saw, 2 officers rushed toward them. "He's in there," Michael gasped. "In the walls, he's been living in our house." The officers didn't hesitate. Weapons drawn, they stormed the house. Minutes passed. Then, a gunshot. Michael's stomach dropped. Silence. Then, the radio buzzed. "We need backup, now." Sarah gripped his arm. "Oh my God, what did they find?" One of the officers came back out, his face pale. "You need to come with us." Michael hesitated. Did you catch him?" The officer didn't answer. He just gestured for them to follow. Inside, the house felt wrong. The attic hatch was open. A stench of decay filled the air. Then, the officer pointed at the security monitor. Michael stepped forward. The screen showed footage from inside their bedroom. His stomach twisted as he watched. It was from last night. The camera faced their bed, Mike and Sarah fast asleep. But then a thin skeletal figure slowly pushed open the attic hatch. It slithered down. crawled across the ceiling, then lowered itself inches above Michael's sleeping face. Just watching. Michael staggered back. His breath hitched. Sarah covered her mouth in horror. The officer took a deep breath. "We found him," he said quietly. But he wasn't alive. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. "What do you mean?" The officer swallowed hard. "He's been dead for weeks." Michael felt his blood run cold. "That's not possible. We saw him. He grabbed me." The officer's face darkened. "Sir, his body was found inside the walls, decomposed. No way he was moving." Michael's vision blurred. He felt the world tilting. Then, a breath. Right behind him. "You shouldn't have looked." Michael's breath caught in his throat. That voice, right behind him. Low, raspy, decayed. "You shouldn't have looked." His body locked up. Cold air tickled the back of his neck. Slowly, so painfully slowly, he turned his head. Nothing. Just empty air. Sarah whimpered, gripping his arm. "Michael, what was that?" The officer's face paled like he heard it too. One of the other cops came running in, shaking. His voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, you need to see this." They led Michael and Sarah back to the bedroom. Everything looked the same, the broken window, the shattered door, except for one thing. The walls. They had changed. Long, deep scratches ran across the surface. Hundreds of them. And in the center, a message, carved into the drywall. "Let me out." Sarah's knees buckled. She clutched Michael for support. The officer swallowed hard. "There's more." He led them to the attic ladder. Michael didn't want to go up. Every cell in his body screamed at him not to, but he had to. One by one, they climbed up. The smell hit first. Rotting flesh, stale sweat. And then, in the farthest corner, the body, shriveled, decomposed. The same man they had seen, except he had been dead for weeks. The impossible terror, Sarah gasped, stepping back. No, this isn't real." Michael stared, unable to breathe. His mind refused to process what he was seeing. This man, the same man who had grabbed his ankle, the same one who had whispered in his ear, he was rotting, motionless, long dead. A dark stain marked the wooden attic floor beneath him. Dried blood. One of the officers covered his nose. "He must have been living here for months. We'll need an autopsy to confirm." Michael shook his head violently. "That's not possible. We saw him. He moved. He stopped. Something caught his eye. In the dead man's hands, a notebook. Michael's fingers trembled as he bent down and slowly pried it from the corpse's grip. He opened it, and his blood turned to ice. The first pages were scribbled notes, just like before. Messy handwriting, daily observations. But then, as the pages went on, the writing changed. The letters grew uneven, like the sentences became wrong, until finally it wasn't words anymore, just the same message, over and over and over. "Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out." Michael slammed the note with his hands shaking, and that's when the officer said something that made his stomach drop. "Sir, this body's been dead for at least a month." Sarah's face drained of all color. But that's not possible," she whispered, "because last night he touched us." The officer's eyes flickered with unease. Then who? A loud thump. Everyone jumped. Michael spun around. The attic door had slammed shut, trapping them inside. The thing in the dark. The flashlight flickered. The room darkened. Sarah screamed. A shadow moved. Not the body, something else. Something in the corner of the attic. Michael couldn't see its face. Just a shape. Tall, thin, wrong. The officer drew his gun. "Who's there? Show yourself." A deep, distorted voice rumbled from the darkness. "I told you not to look." Then the figure rushed forward. The officer fired. Bang! The bullet passed right through. The shadow did not stop. The flashlight died, and the room was swallowed by blackness. The darkness takes hold. Michael felt the cold first. A numbing chill that crawled up his spine as the attic was swallowed in pitch-black darkness. Sarah's breathing was ragged beside him. The officer, gun still raised, was frozen in place. Then a whisper right in Michael's ear. "You let me in." His heart stopped. The voice wasn't human. It was something else. Something broken. Then a sharp pain, like ice-cold nails dragging down his arm. Michael yelled, stumbling backward. The flashlight flickered just for a second. And in that brief flash, he saw it. A face. Pale, stretched skin, black, sunken eyes, a gaping mouth twisted in an eternal grin. It was right in front of him. And then the light died again. Sarah screamed. Something crashed in the attic. Michael reached for her in the dark, grasping nothing but empty air. Then, the attic door creaked open on its own. A gust of freezing wind rushed through the room, and suddenly, the presence was gone. The flashlight flickered back on. Michael's breath came in short gasps. He turned wildly, scanning the attic. No one was there. Sarah was trembling, clutching the officer's arm. The officer's hands shook as he holstered his gun. His face was pale as death. "We need to leave. Now." Michael didn't argue. They climbed down the attic ladder as fast as they could, practically stumbling into the hallway. But as soon as Michael's feet hit the ground, he froze. The house had changed. The house that wasn't theirs. Everything was off. The walls looked darker, aged, rotten. The air was thick, suffocating damp. A low humming noise came from somewhere deep within the house, almost like a heartbeat. Sarah's voice shook. "Michael, the front door." Michael turned his head. The door was gone. Not locked, not barricaded, just gone. Sarah started sobbing. "We were just outside. The officer spun around, gripping his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Grayson requesting immediate assistance at static." Then, a distorted voice crackled through. "Officer Grayson is not here anymore." The officer went pale. Sarah let out a choked gasp. No. This is a dream. This has to be a dream." Michael's heart pounded in his chest. His own house had become something else. Then, footsteps. From the kitchen, slow, deliberate, and then a voice, soft, whimpering. A child's voice. "Help me?" Sarah grabbed Michael's arm. There's a child in there." Michael's instincts screamed at him to run the other way, but something compelled him forward. The officer cursed. "No, wait!" But Michael was already moving. He stepped into the kitchen, and his stomach dropped. The child in the dark. The room was empty. No child, no furniture, just bare wooden floors, walls covered in deep, jagged scratches. And then Michael looked down. At the center of the room was a trapdoor. A single bloody handprint was smeared across it. His breath shook. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Michael, please don't." But Michael already knew. Whatever was happening in this house, the answer was down there. The officer pulled out his flashlight. "If we go down there, we go together." Michael swallowed hard. Then he grabbed the metal handle and pulled. The trapdoor creaked open, revealing a ladder descending into pure darkness. And then, that voice again. "Help me." Michael clenched his jaw and climbed down. The descent into darkness. Michael's boots hit the ground with a soft thud. The air was thick, rotten, heavy with something he couldn't name. Sarah followed right behind him, her breathing ragged. The officer came last, his flashlight trembling in his grip. The trapdoor slammed shut above them. Sarah screamed. Michael spun around, grabbing at the ladder. Gone. The officer cursed under his breath, fumbling with his radio again. "Dispatch, do you read? We're trapped underground, I repeat. Static." Then a whisper, not through the radio. From the walls. Low. Humming, chattering, growing louder. Michael shined his flashlight down the corridor ahead. Damp, stone walls stretched into blackness. The tunnel smelled like old dirt and decay, and at the far end, a wooden door. Old, rotten, scratched. The bloody handprint was there too. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm, her fingers ice cold. "Michael, don't." But something called to him. A presence. A feeling. A pull. His feet moved on their own. The officer raised his gun. I swear, if something jumps out, Michael grabbed the handle and pulled the door open. The room that shouldn't exist. Inside, a small, filthy room. A single cot. Rusted shackles bolted to the floor. Dried blood staining the walls. And in the center, a mirror. Michael caught in his throat, because it wasn't just any mirror. It was his old bedroom mirror. The same one his parents had taken down when he was a kid. Because he used to wake up screaming, saying something watched him from inside it. Sarah choked on a sob. "Michael, what is this?" Michael took a step forward, his reflection staring back. But then it changed. The reflection moved on its own. It lifted a trembling hand and pointed. Not at Michael, behind him. Michael's blood ran cold. The door was gone. The officer swore, banging on the wall. "It was just here. What the hell is happening?" Sarah backed up toward the mirror, her hands shaking. "Michael, we need to," her voice caught. Michael froze, because her reflection was still moving, even though she wasn't. Sarah let out a broken gasp, and then it smiled, wide, teeth too sharp. Michael grabbed Sarah's wrist and yanked her away. "Don't look at it." The officer turned. His face went white. The reflections weren't them anymore. They were something else. Grinning, twitching, watching. The whispers grew deafening. Michael clutched his head. Sarah screamed. The lights flickered, and the mirror shattered. Glass rained down around them. The whispers stopped. Everything was still. Michael's breath came in short, ragged gasps. He turned, and his stomach dropped. Something was coming out of the broken mirror. Long, bony fingers. Gray, rotting flesh. And then, its face. The same man from the attic, but now it had no eyes, just empty, gaping sockets. Its lips curled into a smile, and it spoke. I waited so long for someone to set me free. Michael's body locked up. The officer raised his gun. The shot rang through the room, but the thing didn't flinch. It grinned wider, and then it moved, faster than anything human. The officer screamed as it lunged. Michael grabbed Sarah's hand. Run! They raced down the corridor. The whispers roared back to life. The tunnel twisted around them. And then, light. The escape that wasn't. They burst through a door, and suddenly they were outside. The night air was cold, still. Sarah collapsed onto the pavement, sobbing. Michael turned, gasping for breath. The house was gone. No windows, no roof, just an empty lot. Sarah gripped his arm. Michael, where's the officer? Michael spun around. The officer was gone. The house was gone. Everything gone. And then a voice behind them. Michael turned slowly. There on the sidewalk stood a man in a tattered hoodie, his skin gray, hollow, his eyes empty. You let me out. Michael's vision blurred. His ears rang. The world tilted. And then everything went black. The endless nightmare. When Michael woke up, he was back in the house, lying in bed. The morning sun streamed through the window. Sarah was beside him, sleeping peacefully. For a moment, he almost believed it had been a dream. Almost. Then he saw the mirror, cracked, and in its reflection, the man in the hoodie stood behind him, grinning.